So the dance that Streb performs are very powerful. So to reach this level of intensity, how much does the dance be mentally? Do you have like to start with, or is something from her pushing you, or?
You mean how do we get to that point
Yeah,
of being able to do that? I think people come in with a certain amount of strength. Obviously, they need to just to get in the work. But I mean, Paula, who was ahead of me, I never lifted a weight. I was a gymnast, I was a dancer, I was an improviser. I never lifted a weight, and I just followed her. I mean, she helped me learn how to lift weights, and that became a very important aspect of, just honing my muscles. If I needed to push my head off the ground with my hands, I needed certain muscles, and it became a scientific thing, as opposed to all my other dance training, which was, how do you feel? And there was nothing really direct about it. So that was really exciting to be able to start to train like that. At the same time, Paula also did yoga. And there was a certain, ritual about that I took very seriously. So this combination of making sure that I was eating, I think the dancers, they're like opera singers. At least when I was doing it, you're completely, your diet, your whole focus all day long. If you're, rehearsing and performing slightly higher, but rehearsing is the same thing. You can get just as hurt in that way. So, the ritual of centering myself in yoga, as well as making sure I was strong. If there were weak points, I wouldn't push it. There's a lot of training that happens in the process of being with her. And that's only, part of the other piece of having your spirit wanting to do it and being very excited about it. It was the most, I was a child really until 38. Yeah.
And would you say there's a similarity in the dancer's childhood and bringing up get the same mentality to want to do this type of dance?
One more time with that question.
Okay, so would you say that the dancers, what they did before Streb, it has some similarities to reach this level of intensity that makes them want to do this whole complete process of this dancing?
Does every dancer come to it in the same way? No, I think that, and the film is pretty good, actually, the way Catherine kind of went a little bit into people's lives. They all had sort of some different reasons, I think, that was driving them to be towards her work. So that's hard to generalize. But certainly like Sammy and I really felt like the same kind of rage. I think there's some similarities. In why and how people come to her work, but.
Okay. So you said in your film that you've been taking it's been a very long process to define pop action. So what would you say your definition of pop action is today?
Well, I think pop action, the two-flight elevator speech would be pop action is really learning to fly, and getting off the ground. And I think that the technical part of pop action is that, you change your base of support, unlike dance, who stays pretty much right upside down. Right side up, never upside down, mostly. And I think that pop action is really the notion that you are popping your muscles, the initiation, the inauguration of a movement, whether it be within your body or traveling, which are distinct, and we specify what the difference is technically within those two things. You can do a move and not go anywhere. We're very critical and clinical about that. But when you explode your muscle groups, it's really much more like martial arts than it is like the skeletal system. Rather than training the skeletal system and doing, a transfer of weight to get to someplace else. So your bones are dragging your muscles. We are really trying to, put fire in our muscles, and that drags the skeleton around and basically unifies your body. And the notion of pop action has all these different things, go to an unhabitual place in space, don't camouflage gravity, take the hit, learn how to deal with impact, land on all different surfaces of your body except for your upper back and your head. It deals with understanding, what happens when you're doing these solo moves, which gymnasts do, but you're doing them with 9 people all at the same time in the same spot in space. And I think that you really, the other aspect of pop action that's I think unusual is that you're doing it in a multi-second sort of way. We don't count, you know, and so it's really, you know, going against the tradition of dance training in a way. Although we want trained dancers, but you're not able to count because you don't have time. You know, if you go 1 and 2, we've done 10 moves or fallen 30 feet in that amount of time. So all of those aspects of understanding how a body can fly and what that means is way more complex, and yet there's about 1,000 different principles that everybody who's training in pop action has to absorb, and every kid too, to be able to really, create an explosion of action so that people, you know, it grabs the attention of anyone, whether it's passerby or the audience. Because it's a real move. You know, that's the other thing. Pop action is a quest for what's the real move, and what would it mean if anyone ever did it or witnessed it.
Yeah. And what would you say that your definition of to fly is? Because you say it's something people have to understand. So what would you say that is?
Well, I think flight is you're basically not patterning flight of birds or insects. You're basically dealing with a full-fledged, full-weighted, full-boned human body in flight. And we define flight, whether you're in the air for a second or half a second, and you're an inch off the ground or 40 feet off the ground. Flight is just, you know, as long as you have both feet off the ground, you're in an emergency situation, and you have to contend with it. And the human flight goes from the, you know, absurd to the sublime and back down again, and to the dangerous. I think that, you know, to me, you're not really moving unless you have both feet off the ground. And once you do, that's flight.